Alan Callahan is in Bethlehem, at the Church of the Nativity, a place of pilgrimage since before the 4th century. It commemorates the traditional birthplace of Jesus. Every Christian child learns that Jesus was born in Bethlehem on Christmas Day in the first year of our Lord, and in a stable. But do history and archaeology back up the gospel story? Most scholars now agree that Jesus was not born in the stable, which has become such a traditional part of Christmas. That's a notion that grew out of a single line in the Gospel of Luke, that Jesus was laid in a manger, that is, an animal feed trough.
Mary gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in bands of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no place for them in the inn.
You got the wise men, and you got the shepherds, and they got all those animals, and they had the family, and all of that is very charming and traditional, but in that configuration, it really doesn't jibe with what we know of the historical circumstances surrounding his birth.
What we do know about the time is that there was very little wood to build stables in a land of rock and desert. The place that pilgrims have been visiting for centuries and is thought to be Jesus' birthplace is not a stable at all. It's a cave underneath the Church of the Nativity.
That's where the masonry stops. Some of the bedrock of the cave is still visible here.
Could Jesus have been born in a cave? Cave dwellings certainly existed in the time of Jesus. Back in Nazareth, Rachel visited a partial reconstruction of the hillside village as it might have been. It shows how a cave would have formed part of a first-century house. Claire Phan is an instructor in New Testament studies at the University of the Holy Land and advised on the construction of this site.
This is the kind of basement cave that might have been like the place that Mary gave birth to Jesus. It's the lower level of a house and carved out of very soft limestone.
So it's like a wine cellar.
It's like a wine cellar. The temperature stays very even throughout the whole year. It's protected from the environment. You could use a natural cave, or you could carve it and enlarge a place to be able to store olive oil and wine and perhaps grains and precious items down here throughout the year.
Caves were also used to shelter animals, so a manger or feeding trough would not have been out of place here. But why would Mary have given birth in such a place, and not in a normal room? The answer lies in a simple translation mistake. The Gospels were written more than 50 years after Jesus' death, in Greek, the language used by educated scribes.
They laid him in a manger because there was no room in the inn. But that inn is a very funny word. It really is a word that in Greek means the guest room or the upper room.
Mary may well have gone into labor in just such an upper floor room, but then have been moved before the delivery.
Right. Yeah. The house is full. There's no privacy upstairs, and so what do you do? The suggestion is that perhaps Mary gave birth in the basement.
The evidence points to Jesus having been born in a basement cave, and almost certainly not in a stable.